guys, what's up? I'm Kelly and welcome back to the Big Vision channel and welcome to a new year of Big Vision. This is our first discussion video of 2020 and I get the honors of kicking it off. So what's funny is we're actually going to be kicking off the new year by ending a series, which I think is, a great way to kick off the new year. Why not? Why not end a series? But before we jump into this video, I want to let you guys know that we just put up a vlog where we go out and feed some of the homeless on the streets in an area near us, and it was an incredible experience. Anytime we do a video like that, we are hoping to inspire you guys to get out and do the same thing. We want to show you what the love of God can do in people's lives. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. So if you've been keeping up with our channel, I have done 2 previous videos to this one where I started a series about self-worth. And first we talked about self-worth in appearance, then we talked about finding our self-worth in relationships, and today we're going to be talking about finding our self-worth in our life circumstances, or basically finding our self-worth when life just sucks and things just aren't going our way. Have you ever just had that time where you feel like everything is going awfully and you don't feel like it's ever going to get back on track? Maybe you're like that GIF I've been seeing around of the guy who is sliding down this really big slide and it has all the months of 2019 lined up, and he starts off real smooth, hits a bump and flips his way down the rest of the slide. Maybe that's how your 2019 has gone. Maybe that's how your life has gone. I don't know, but I have definitely been through some pretty crazy life circumstances, and I get you. I know how it feels, and so I'm going to share with you today how you can find your self-worth even when you're going through those circumstances. How you can find God when you're going through those circumstances. When I think of rough life circumstances, there's so many different things in life that can happen that just knock us off kilter. Like for me, I grew up in a house that just did not have a ton of money. My parents did everything they could for me. They did more than enough for me because they wanted me to have the best in school. But still, we grew up eating processed pizza and hot dogs and, just basically skimping by. I know people though who have grown up struggling with bullying and they were bullied really bad. Luckily, I was a very outgoing person, so I don't feel like I suffered from that situation as much. When I was in college though, I did kind of seclude myself and got more introverted, and so in my opinion, a bad life circumstance could just be a point where you don't feel like you have any friends, or you don't feel like you can leave the room, you don't have anything to do, and that was really rough on me. Also, right after that, my parents went through a divorce, and so we went through a pretty hard time with my parents' divorce and just not having a place to fully call our home and kind of moving around and things like that. There's so many different things that we can go through in our life that create just a bad situation and really get us down and make us feel bad about ourselves and make us lose our self-worth. Maybe you are struggling with a sickness that you can't get over. Maybe you have a disability that you don't feel comfortable with. Maybe you went through a really bad relationship or an abusive relationship. Maybe you hate your job and you're just going there because you have to make money. And the only way to make money is to have a job that you really hate. A lot of times it feels like that. I've really fixed that self for my situation. Let me just tell you guys about that situation. So I had a job where I worked in property management for 8 years of my life. I started as a housekeeper, and luckily, I did advance myself to the point that I was a property manager. And let me be honest, I would have rather been a housekeeper. Being a property manager was the worst decision I ever made. I hated it. I was not good at it. I did not like authority or giving people authority. I did not like conflict, and it was a constant battle and conflict. And so eventually I got fired from that job because, let's be honest, I sucked at it. I just was not good at it. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, though. I was in a really bad time in my life when I got fired. I didn't have any money. I had to move back in with my mom. It was just rough. I didn't have a job for a while, but in that time, God was able to show his favor on my life, and I was able to find a job where I could work from home and start building up an income, but still be able to be at home and not be stressed all the time, not be talking to people all the time and be in conflict all the time. I'm now able to keep my niece whenever she's sick and can't be at school. There's so many things that through that really bad circumstance, through losing my job, through moving in with my mom, there's so many things positive that came out of it because God ultimately had favor on my life even when it felt like everything was falling apart. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. There is a character in the Bible that the same thing happened to him, but ultimately, even through the really rough life circumstances, God showed favor in his life, and so much good came out of everything that he went through. And that's what I want you guys to understand is we can go through a really, really hard time in life. We can have a sickness. We can go through a divorce. We can go through so many bad things. But ultimately, if we trust God, if we trust the favor that he has on us, if we just honor him in everything that we do, ultimately it is all going to come out to good for those who love him and those who trust him. So I hope this can be a huge encouragement for you today. So the character who just went through some pretty rough stuff, in my opinion, is, and there's a lot of different characters in the Bible who have gone through some really rough stuff. Jesus himself went through some pretty rough stuff, but the one that really just drew me in was Joseph. And you can find the story of Joseph in Genesis, and it starts in Genesis chapter 37, and it will go all the way through. Let me just make sure I give it to you guys correctly. So kind of the prominent points that I'm going to talk about when it comes to Joseph starts in Genesis chapter 36. It's going to go through Genesis chapter 42. But you can actually keep going past Genesis 42 and there's still more about Joseph. Like I said, the parts that I'm going to be discussing are Genesis 36 through Genesis 42. But I'm not going to be sitting here and reading all of that to you because that is just a lot to read to you guys. So I'm going to be paraphrasing everything that happens and making you understand why God showed huge favor on Joseph's life and just really, you know, even in the worst situations, took care of him and made sure that no matter how bad things got, Joseph was taken care of and everything ultimately came out for good. So basically, if you've never heard the story of Joseph, Joseph is one of the sons of Jacob. Jacob, if you don't know who Jacob is, he's also known as Israel. He is highly favored in God's eyes, and he is married to Leah and Rachel. Now, he ultimately wanted to marry Rachel, but in order to marry Rachel, he had to be with Leah. Leah had 10 children. Later in his life, Jacob was finally able to have children with Rachel after thinking that they were never going to be able to have kids together. And so the first child that he had with Rachel is Joseph. And then he also has Benjamin. But Joseph is really special in his father's eyes because he is the first child that he had with Rachel. And he has also just had Joseph in his old age. And so he just looks really favorably on Joseph. But unfortunately for Joseph, this is just not good for him. It's good for him in the fact that his father loves him and looks favorably on him, but it's bad in the fact that he has 11 other brothers who are really jealous of this. And so his brothers just don't really like him. And not to mention, if you read about Joseph, he brags a little bit, struts around like he's the best one in the house because his father looks highly on him. And honestly, he probably tells them things that he shouldn't. That just ticks them off even more. So we got Joseph, who is the 11th brother. So he has all these older brothers that just really don't like him because his father shows favor on him. And then his father goes and makes him a coat of many colors. And naturally, this really ticks his brothers off even more. And so, you know, that doesn't make Joseph's life very easy because, again, he's even greater disliked. Then Joseph, being Joseph, goes and tells his brothers this dream where basically it comes out to look like he is going to eventually rule over his brothers. The dream specifically says, we were out in the field, and this is in chapter 37, verse 7. Says, we were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundle stood up. Your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before my bundle. So, you know, Joseph's like, basically, y'all are going to bow before me. I would not be happy with this dream either. So brothers naturally were not very happy. Then there is another dream that Joseph has. And this time his father and mother are involved. And this dream is in verse 9. And basically it says, listen, I've had another dream. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. The sun, the moon, his mother and father, and then 11 stars, so all of his brothers. So, again, brothers are not happy to the point that they are ready to get rid of Joseph completely. So, this is not good for Joseph. Again, bad life circumstance. So, basically, all of the brothers are out pasturing the sheep, and Jacob says to Joseph, go out and find your brothers. So, Joseph goes out, finds the brothers. The brothers are like, okay, we're out here alone pasturing the sheep. Let's get rid of Joseph. And first they plan to kill Joseph, but Reuben, one of the brothers, decides, hey, let's not do that. He is our brother. Please, let's not do that. And so he convinces them there's another way. And so while Reuben is not around, the brothers decide they are going to sell Joseph off into slavery. So when you talk about going from 0 to 90 really fast, that is exactly what happened. Joseph has ticked these brothers off by basically just being arrogant. And now these brothers have said, okay, we're just going to sell you into slavery. Imagine if you made your older sibling angry and they just go and sell you into slavery because they don't care anymore. That's really rough. It was a rough time. And so Joseph is now sold to Egypt into slavery. And so while he is in Egypt, though, God shows favor on his life. So that's what I'm saying is, he's sold into slavery. Things could not get worse for him, but God is still watching out for Joseph, sees what's going on, and he's taking care of him. So when Joseph is sold into slavery, he is actually sold to Potiphar, who is an officer of Pharaoh, who is the king of Egypt. So first of all, Joseph is sold to basically just the high up ranks of Egypt. And when he is sold to Potiphar, God shows so much favor on his life that he enables him to do everything to perfection. All the work that he has to do, he does with excellence. And that's part of getting favor with God, is making sure that when God puts you in a situation, no matter how hard it is, we are always performing to our best ability. We are always performing with excellence when God gives us the gifts to do that. You know, in our own lives, when we're looking at Joseph had to work. He had to work really hard. In our own lives, that might mean diving into the Bible. That might mean doing the best at a job that we hate. That might mean trying to make a relationship work that we just really aren't happy with at the time. But I have seen people who their relationship was about to absolutely fall apart. Their marriage was falling apart. But because they put the work into it, God showed favor on the relationship and it worked out. So there is work involved. Just like I talked about in our self-worth in relationships, where you have to honor people, you also have to put in the work. You have to trust God. You have to pray. You have to read your Bible. You have to do the things that he's called you to do. And so that's what Joseph did, is he worked as hard as he could for Potiphar, and God showed favor. And eventually Potiphar loved Joseph so much that he just put him in charge of who he could put him in charge of. He really rose him up in the ranks. But then things happened again. Life circumstances got in the way. And so basically, Potiphar's wife takes an interest in Joseph, which is not a good thing. And so she really wants to seduce Joseph. And Joseph is like, no, you know, Potiphar has done so much good for me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested. Well, this ticks Potiphar's wife off. And eventually, she lies to Potiphar and tells Potiphar that Joseph slept with her. This makes Potiphar really angry. And he ends up throwing Joseph back into kind of the worst parts of prison. And so life circumstances once again get in the way. And this time Joseph could not control them at all. And that's the thing, is a lot of times we're not going to be able to control our life circumstances. That's just how it is. We have to go through, and there's a purpose and a plan in everything that God puts us through. He's going to use that for our good if we trust him. And so while Joseph is in prison, and this is in the king's prison where all the king's prisoners are, God shows favor in Joseph's life again. It says in, this is chapter 39, verse 21, but the Lord was with Joseph in prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. So even though Joseph was in this really rough situation, life had gotten in the way and it had really started to suck. But God showed favor on Joseph's life. And the warden loved Joseph, and it just made things a lot easier for him. And so as we continue, two prisoners end up having dreams. And Joseph is able to interpret the dreams of those prisoners. Well, the Pharaoh ends up having two dreams as well. Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So this is big. And nobody can interpret his dreams. So eventually, when Pharaoh's dreams cannot be interpreted, one of the prisoners that Joseph had interpreted the dream for spoke to the Pharaoh and was like, there was a guy in prison with me who interpreted my dream. Maybe he can do it for you. So Pharaoh sends for Joseph, and Joseph is able to interpret his dreams. And in these dreams, first he says, hey, one of these dreams says that we're going to have 7 years of just prosperity, and there's going to be so much food, there's going to be an abundance. Then after that, we're going to have 7 years of just famine, and it's going to be awful. So through the 7 years of prosperity, we need to prepare for the 7 years of famine. Pharaoh was so excited about being able to understand what these dreams meant and understanding that he was going to be able to prepare for this. Once again, God showed favor in Joseph's life, and he ends up being the ruler over Egypt under Pharaoh. So the only person with a higher ranking than Joseph was Pharaoh. And that is just insane to me, that you have this younger sibling who is bullied by his brothers, sold into slavery, he's thrown in prison twice, things are awful for him. And eventually Joseph is elevated by God, because of God's favor, to a position in which he is now a ruler over Egypt. That is huge. And just like Joseph's dreams to his brothers eventually have to come to him because they need food in this famine. But Joseph could have been horrible to his family, but he showed forgiveness. And that's another big thing about God's favor, is we have to realize that there's going to be people in our life that make us suffer. There's going to be people who treat us wrongly for things that we don't deserve to be treated wrongly for. They're going to bully us. They're going to make us feel like we're not going down the path we're supposed to go down. In those situations, we have to realize that we have to show forgiveness. We have to forgive people, because if we don't forgive people, that bitterness will set in our heart and we will never be able to find our worth in God. And so, just like Joseph said, I'm going to forgive my family because I love them. Regardless of what they did to me, we have to forgive no matter what life circumstances we're going through and no matter what people do to us. Just like in Joseph's life, we may be going through some of the hardest times we have ever been through, but God wants to show favor on your life. He wants to take care of you, but you have to make sure that you are working, that you are reading your Bible, that you are trusting Him, that you are praying for Him, ultimately that you are fully creating that relationship with Him that He wants to have with you. And you also have to make sure that you are living out the life that you're meant to live, which means forgiving people that maybe you don't want to forgive. But if you trust God and if you do those things, you will, I promise, find your worth in who you are in Him. Because if we go back to my other self-worth talks, you will never find worth in your appearance, worth in your relationships, worth in your life, unless you first find your worth in God. Once you find worth in God, there is nothing that can take that away from you. Remember, no matter what you go through, all things come together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. He is going to take care of you, but you have to trust Him. So that is all I have for this video on self-worth in your life circumstances. And also that's all I have for this series on self-worth. I hope that this series has ultimately just inspired you to find your worth in the things that matter. I hope that 2020 will be the year where you really cultivate that relationship with God, where you find honor, where you find favor, where you trust Him, and ultimately you find that self-worth, because that's the only place you're going to find it. You're not going to find it in your phone. You're not going to find it in other people. You're not going to find it in social media. You're not going to find it in anything that you have. You're going to find it in God. So I hope you guys are already having an amazing 2020. I would love to know in the comments down below what you're doing this year to find your self-worth, to get those goals done. What are some of your resolutions? Let me know. Also, don't forget to check out the video we just put up where we were helping feed the homeless for Christmas. It was an incredible experience. You guys definitely need to check that video out. Also, don't forget to follow us on all of our other platforms. We have an Instagram, we have a Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have a Facebook page. If you're watching this on Facebook, go subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the video. So that is all we have for today. Get excited for some new, really awesome content coming in 2020, and we will see you guys in our next video.